Hello again, this is Pastor Tim coming to you from Bend and Lomita United Methodist Churches in Central Texas. We've been doing a series on the Bible because we believe it's important to know the information in the Bible, to have some kind of foundation on which to stand to deal with the modern world. And so it's difficult when you first look at the Bible because it's a lot of information, a lot of things that may not make much sense when you read it on your own. So we need some help sometimes. And so I'm bringing you things that we've looked at and think might be helpful for you. So we just talked about Noah and the flood, and now we're going to talk about the Tower of Babel, the next major event that happens in the scriptures. Sometime later, we don't know what time, but sometime later, the Tower of Babel happens. It's a story that answers the question that probably many people ask in biblical times: why do people speak so many different languages? If everybody came from the same beginning, how come there's such a diversity and we can't understand each other? Which results in sometimes hostility and sometimes misunderstandings and conflict. So why is there a difference in language? And I imagine sitting around a campfire again, or children ask their father, why do people speak different languages? And he says, let me tell you a story. It's about the Tower of Babel. It said that human beings were doing well. They were cooperating, and they decided that they were going to build a tower. The idea was that in a three-story universe, if you go up high enough, you can look God eye to eye. If you go up high enough, that's where God stayed. And so we could build a tower all the way to God. Now, what they imply is that they want to be equal to God. Human beings from the beginning, from Adam and Eve, want to be in charge. They want to be in control. And so that's what they try to exert their control over nature, over buildings, over other people. And so they think they can be equal to God. And so they start building. And the problem is that you can't do that. You can't be equal to God because you don't have the perspective of God. You don't have the information that God has. You don't have the ability and the wisdom that God has. Every time that we try to take control, every time we try to create empires, whether it's financial or political or some other kind, military, anything, we always fail because we are not God. We can't control everything. Things happen. For one thing, we are very limited in terms of our span of a year, so we can't be God. We can't know the right and wrong and the good that God knows, the perspective God knows. So it's going to fail. So they start building, and God looks down and said, "That's not going to work." And so God says, "What I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up their languages, so that they can't understand each other, and then they can't cooperate." Now, that wasn't God out of meanness saying that I don't want anybody to be equal to me. It's God saving humanity from itself, because it would be utterly destroy itself if it had complete control. So God says, let me stop that so that they'll have to deal with their differences. And so that's why we have different languages. Of course, languages actually occur because people lived, civilizations grew up in different areas and developed their own language and customs, remarkably similar to each other, but different enough that we can't understand each other. So ever since the Tower of Babel, we've been trying to get a language that we can understand. And when Jesus came along, he said, "Do you have a language that you can understand? It's called love. If you love each other, you care for each other, do good for the other person, then it doesn't matter if the words are intelligible or not. It's a universal language of understanding." And we look forward to the time in the kingdom of God when everyone understands who God is and understands who Jesus is, and is at one with each other. And then there's no need for a translator. There's no need for understanding another person's language, because we understand. It's because it's in the kingdom of God, and it's underpinned by love. So the people are scattered to save them from themselves. And we've spent the next several centuries, several millennia, trying to overcome the differences and the misunderstandings that happen. But that's done in love. All right, I'll see you next time.